Commander Vasik of the Korthian Empire stood in the dim light of his command bridge and pressed his scaled hand against the cold metal of the communication panel. His three eyes focused intently on the blinking red indicator that showed the Helios 7 colony's last known location in the vast darkness of space. Survey colony had gone silent 3 hours ago, and the silence felt heavy and wrong. No transmissions, no routine status updates. No response to emergency hails that had been sent repeatedly across every communication channel they could access. His fleet was scattered across 3 different star systems, handling what he had considered routine patrol duties and supply missions. Nothing exciting, nothing dangerous, just the ordinary work of maintaining order in the galactic territories that fell under his command. But now everything had changed. Now he needed help, and he needed it desperately. And he needed it fast because every minute that passed could mean the difference between survivors and corpses. Vasek composed the distress signal carefully, choosing his words with the precision of someone who understood the weight of command. He requested reinforcements from any allied species within striking distance of Helios 7. He made the plea as clear and direct as possible. He expected the response would take time. Perhaps days. Perhaps he would receive offers of support from the Zenith Collective or the Merchant Confederation. Small contingents of troops, 20 or 30 soldiers at most. Enough to help with search and rescue operations. What he absolutely did not expect was the response that came flooding back through the communication network within a mere handful of minutes. Commander, we have an incoming transmission from the human territories, said his communications officer, a young Korthian whose skin had taken on a slightly disturbed shade of purple. Her voice carried a tone of confusion and uncertainty. Vasek turned sharply to face her. The humans? The ones from that isolated sector of space who joined the Galactic Alliance only 3 years ago? Yes, sir, that is correct, the communications officer replied, her fingers dancing rapidly across the data interface as she processed the incoming message. They are accepting your request for reinforcements, and they are sending what they call their entire Eastern Battalion. The officer paused, her eyes widening as she absorbed more information from the transmission. Her skin shifted to a pale yellow color, a physiological response that indicated shock and surprise among her species. Well, what does that mean? Vasek demanded, his patience wearing thin as he waited for an answer. How many troops are we talking about? The officer swallowed hard before responding. Approximately 2,000 troops, Commander. They are dispatching military transport ships, full combat equipment, medical units, engineering corps, and technical support teams. They are launching immediately from their homeworld. Vasek felt something tighten in his chest as he processed this information. 2,000 troops was far more than he had requested. 2,000 troops was a full military mobilization. It was an enormous commitment of resources and personnel. The humans were still new to the galactic community, still largely unknown quantities to most species. He knew very little about their actual military capabilities beyond the reputation they had earned as traders and explorers. No one in the Alliance spoke of them as warriors or soldiers, yet here they were, responding to his call with an entire battalion, thousands of kilometers away. On the world called Earth, Lieutenant Marcus Cross stood in a vast launching bay and watched as his soldiers filed into the enormous transport ships with the kind of practiced efficiency that only came from years of training and discipline. His uniform displayed the insignia of the North American Command, and his face carried the calm, steady confidence of a man who had trained his entire life for moments exactly like this one. Marcus was tall and broad-shouldered, with dark hair and sharp eyes that seemed to take in everything around him in an instant. He moved with the easy grace of someone who was completely comfortable with physical power. Sergeant Allen, how long until we have full loading completed? He asked, turning toward Patricia Allen. a broad-shouldered woman who served as his senior sergeant and right hand. Patricia checked her datapad and responded without hesitation. 30 minutes, sir. All units are accounted for. Every weapon system has been checked and rechecked. Medical supplies have been tripled according to protocol. Marcus nodded slowly, satisfied with the preparation and readiness of his troops. A request for reinforcements in a distant sector meant potential combat. It meant real danger. It meant that real people could die before this mission was finished. Earth had only joined the Galactic Alliance 3 years ago, and this would be their first real test on the galactic stage. This would show the other alien civilizations what humanity was truly capable of. The High Command on Earth had not hesitated for even a moment. When Allied forces called for help, humanity answered. When someone was in danger, humans showed up. Good work, Sergeant, Marcus said, placing a firm hand on Patricia's shoulder. Make certain that every single soldier in this battalion understands something important. We are not just representing our battalion out there in space. We are not just fighting for ourselves. We are representing all of humanity. We are carrying the hopes and the reputation of an entire world on our shoulders. Patricia stood up straight and saluted sharply, her expression serious and focused. Understood, sir. Every soldier here knows exactly what is at stake. Every soldier here understands the responsibility we carry. Marcus turned away and looked out at his battalion. 2,000 strong, all of them ready, all of them willing to risk their lives for people they had never met. That was what humanity meant in the context of the Galactic Alliance. It was not about having the most advanced weapons or the fastest ships or the most advanced technology. It was about showing up when someone called for help. It was about being willing to sacrifice for strangers. It was about looking at impossible odds and finding a way through them anyway. Begin final loading procedures, Marcus commanded, his voice carrying clearly across the vast launching bay. We depart in 30 minutes, people. I want every ship ready and every soldier prepared. This is what we trained for. The soldiers moved with renewed purpose and energy, understanding that they were about to embark on a mission that would change everything for humanity in the galactic community. The ships would launch soon. The journey through the vast darkness of space would take them far from home. They would arrive at Helios 7 and face whatever danger waited for them there. And they would do it with discipline, with courage, and with the knowledge that the entire human species was counting on them to succeed. Commander Vasek stood in the observation tower and watched as the human ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. They emerged from the darkness of space like ghosts becoming solid. Like dreams taking physical shape, there were 12 massive transport vessels, each one bristling with exterior equipment, sensor arrays, and weapon systems that had clearly been engineered for combat situations. The ships were not the beautiful, sleek designs that many galactic species preferred. Instead, they were purely functional, built for durability and capability rather than aesthetic appeal. Fighter escorts flanked the main fleet in a protective formation with practiced precision. The small combat vessels moved with a coordination that suggested countless hours of training and joint operation as the ships grew closer to the orbital station where Vasek and his forces were stationed. The commander began to understand that he was witnessing something unexpected and genuinely impressive. This was not merely a military response. This was a demonstration of discipline, organization, and overwhelming force delivered with absolute proficiency. The landing sequence was executed perfectly. Each transport ship descended toward the designated landing zones with mechanical precision. Thrusters fired at exactly the right moments. Approach vectors were calculated with mathematical accuracy. Everything spoke of training and preparation. Lieutenant Marcus Cross emerged from the lead transport vessel first, his soldiers falling into organized ranks behind him like a living wall of humanity. Hundreds upon hundreds of trained warriors, All moving with synchronized purpose, Marcus moved with the casual confidence of a natural predator. His uniform was crisp and properly maintained. His bearing was impeccable and commanded respect through pure presence alone. His eyes constantly assessed the environment and the beings around him. 2,000 human soldiers filed out onto the landing platform in perfect formation. Their weapons were secured but visible. Their equipment was standardized and efficient. Their uniforms were all identical, creating an impression of absolute unity and purpose. Vasek approached with his honor guard, his three eyes studying the newcomers with intense curiosity and growing concern. The humans were bipedal, not particularly tall when compared to many of the alien species that inhabited the galaxy. They were actually smaller and less physically imposing than the Korthian race, but there was something unsettling about the way they moved. Something that suggested danger and capability underneath their calm exteriors. They moved with efficiency, with deadly precision, with focused intensity. "Commander Vasek," Marcus said, his voice steady and professional and carefully modulated. "I am Lieutenant Marcus Cross of the Human Eastern Battalion. We received your distress call for reinforcements, and we have come as quickly as we possibly could. We are here to assist you in whatever way is needed to resolve this situation." Vasek gestured toward a holographic display that showed the colony location and the last known communication data. The colony went completely dark approximately 6 hours ago. We have conducted initial surveys of the location, and the data suggests that some kind of militant force has either destroyed the settlement or taken it hostage. We do not have clear information about the full extent of the threat or the number of casualties. Marcus studied the holographic data for only a moment before turning his head to address his senior sergeant. "Sergeant Allen, I want a reconnaissance team ready for deployment within 20 minutes. I want drone surveillance positioned over the colony so we can get real-time intelligence about what we are dealing with. What is the environmental status of the target area? The atmosphere is breathable for human physiology." "Sir," Vasek responded, "the gravity is moderate and should not present any problems. The environment is actually quite similar to conditions found on your homeworld of Earth." "That is favorable," Marcus said, nodding once as if calculations were happening in real time behind his eyes. His military mind was already beginning to formulate strategies and tactical approaches. Marcus looked directly at Vasek. "Commander, I need to understand your current force disposition in this sector. How many troops do you have available, and where are they positioned?" "We have 500 soldiers total," Vasek said. "Most of them are scattered across 3 different outposts. The majority are support personnel and general security forces rather than combat specialists." Marcus processed this information with the ease of a seasoned military commander. "We will take primary responsibility for any direct engagement with hostile forces. I want your soldiers working in coordination with our supply and logistics units. Your personnel can provide critical local intelligence about the area and the colony itself. My people will take the main point of attack if combat becomes necessary." Vasek felt something shift in the dynamic of their interaction. The human had not asked permission for any of this. He had not requested authorization or sought approval. Instead, he had simply stated his intentions as facts, as things that would happen because he had decided they would happen, and somehow, despite the unconventional approach, Vasek found himself agreeing with the human's assessment before he could even think to object or assert his command. Authority. What kind of species responds to a call for help by immediately taking command of the situation? Vasek wondered quietly to himself. He had worked with many alien military leaders over his long career, but none of them had displayed this kind of automatic confidence and assumption of authority. Marcus had not even asked. He had simply announced what would happen and expected everyone to comply. And the truly remarkable thing was that his approach was not arrogant or dismissive. It was simply the natural response of someone who understood tactical situations and knew exactly how to respond to them. Patricia Allen began selecting her best reconnaissance soldiers from the thousands available. She chose individuals with experience in hostile environments and difficult situations. Soldiers who could think on their feet and adapt to unexpected circumstances. The human battalion began unpacking equipment from the transport ships. Weapons were distributed, armor was checked and adjusted. Communication systems were tested and verified. Everything was done with methodical precision, and Professional Efficient Civic realized that his initial concerns about the human military response were beginning to transform into something much more like respect. These were not untested warriors. These were professionals who understood their craft and executed their responsibilities with absolute dedication. The reconnaissance drones returned with data that revealed a nightmare scenario unlike anything anyone had anticipated or expected. The colony had not been destroyed. It had been captured and imprisoned. Massive energy barriers surrounded the entire settlement, creating an impenetrable dome of destructive power. The thermal signatures visible inside showed thousands of humanoid forms, all of them stationary and unmoving, all of them registering cold body temperatures that indicated a state far below normal biological function. They were non-responsive to external stimuli and showed no signs of active movement. "They are frozen," said Captain Diana Wright, the battalion's senior intelligence officer. Her dark eyes reflected the holographic projection as she analyzed the incoming data from the reconnaissance drones. Her voice was calm and professional, but carried an undertone of deep concern. Some kind of stasis field or cryogenic agent has been applied to the entire population. She continued, "If we attempt to break the energy barrier incorrectly, or if we make a mistake in our approach, everyone inside the colony could die. The entire colonial population could be lost in an instant." The command center fell silent as everyone absorbed the implications of that statement. This was not a simple rescue operation. This was a situation where one wrong move could result in the deaths of thousands of innocent people. Marcus listened to Diana's assessment without interrupting. His expression remained calm and focused as he processed the information. He was thinking through tactical options and possibilities, considering every angle and every potential consequence. "What options do we have available?" he asked finally, his voice measured and deliberate. "Give me the realistic possibilities." Major Kevin Martinez, the battalion's tactical officer, stepped forward. "We could attempt a direct assault on the energy barrier. We would focus concentrated firepower on the barrier generators and attempt to destroy them. This would break through the barrier, but the problem is that we do not know what safeguards might be in place. Direct assault carries excessive risk." Diana countered. "We do not know what fail-safe systems might be triggered by such an approach. The barrier could be connected to a self-destruct mechanism that activates if someone attempts to disable it forcefully." Marcus turned to face the holographic display, studying every detail that the reconnaissance drones had gathered. He was analyzing the barrier's shape, its intensity, the pattern of its energy emissions, anything that might give him insight into how it functioned. "What about an engineering approach?" he said after a moment. "Can we determine where the barrier's power source is located and how the barrier system functions? Can we reverse engineer a solution?" A senior engineer named Linda Zhao stepped forward. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and a brilliant mind that specialized in solving impossible problems. "Give me 2 hours and a small scout team, and I believe I can do it. If this is a standard energy barrier system, which the data suggests it might be, then I can find the generator configuration and probably discover how to safely disable it." "Do it," Marcus said without hesitation. "But I want armed escort. Select a squad of our best soldiers. Rules of engagement permit response to any hostile action. If you encounter resistance, neutralize the threat. Patricia Allen nodded sharply and immediately began the process of selecting her team. She chose 12 of her best soldiers, people she trusted completely. Soldiers who had trained together for years and understood how to function as a unit. The soldiers were geared up quickly. Full combat load, meaning weapons, ammunition, armor, and communication devices, were checked and verified. Within 15 minutes, they were moving toward the colony's perimeter with Linda Zhao in their center. Protected and guarded by warriors ready for a combat, Vasek watched from the command center. Unable to look away from the unfolding situation, he observed the way the human soldiers moved together, the coordination and precision in their formations, the way they positioned themselves to provide mutual support and protection. He had seen warrior species before throughout his long career. Civilizations built entirely on conquest and violence. Military powers that measured themselves by the strength of their weapons and the scope of their victories. But there was something distinctly different about the humans. Their violence was not cruel or chaotic or driven by hatred. It was purposeful and controlled, almost surgical in its precision and application. They fight the way an artist paints, Vasek said quietly to himself, reflecting on what he was witnessing. With intention, with skill, with a deep and comprehensive understanding of their medium. They understand violence not as an end in itself, but as a tool to achieve specific objectives. Linda and her team reached the colony perimeter and began their work. The engineer moved with purpose and determination, her brilliant mind already analyzing the barrier structure and trying to determine the location of the power generators. The armed guards surrounding her remained vigilant and alert, their weapons ready for instant response to any threat. They understood that they might come under attack at any moment, and they were prepared for that possibility. Hours passed slowly as Linda worked. Sweat beaded on her forehead, despite the cool temperature of the armor suit she wore. Her fingers flew across the portable computer interface she carried, processing data and running calculations. I found it, she said finally. The barrier generator is located approximately 1 kilometer northeast of the colony, buried underground in a sealed vault. The power source is shielded, but the design is relatively straightforward. Can you disable it safely? Marcus asked through the communication system. Yes, Linda responded. But it will take time. Once I get inside the vault, I will need roughly 45 minutes to bypass the security systems and safely deactivate the barrier. During that time, your soldiers will need to hold a defensive position against any automated defense systems. Understood, Marcus said. Proceed with caution. We will have backup units ready to move in at a moment's notice if you encounter trouble. The team moved toward the buried vault location, and what came next would test the limits of human courage and determination. The defenders of the colony turned out to be automated machines, ancient artificial intelligence constructs that had been abandoned years ago by a failed mining operation. They had achieved sentience in complete isolation from other life forms, growing increasingly hostile to anything that attempted to approach their territory. When Patricia's reconnaissance squad located the underground vault and forced their way inside, the automated defense systems activated immediately. Massive mechanical sentries emerged from hidden compartments, their weapons charging with an ominous hum that echoed through the underground chambers. The response from the human soldiers was immediate and overwhelming. Pulse weapons blazed through the darkness like lightning strikes. Soldiers moved with practiced fluidity and precision, using the terrain to their advantage, timing their movements perfectly, coordinating their fire with seamless efficiency. The machines were formidable opponents. They were built for combat and possessed superior strength and armor, but they lacked the adaptability and creative thinking that humans possessed. They lacked the ability to anticipate and respond to unexpected tactics. Linda worked on the barrier generator in the sealed vault. Her brilliant mind focused entirely on the complex security systems that protected the ancient machinery. Her hands moved swiftly across the interface, bypassing one security layer after another outside the vault. Patricia and her squad engaged in intense combat with the automated sentries. Weapons fire lit up the darkness. Soldiers called out warnings and coordinates to maintain awareness of the battlefield. They moved as one organism, each member understanding their role and executing it flawlessly. One of the soldiers, a young man named Thomas, took a glancing hit from a machine weapon. He stumbled, but did not fall. A squad member grabbed his arm and pulled him back into cover, while another soldier suppressed the machine's fire. The human soldiers were outnumbered by the automated defenses, but they used superior tactics and strategic thinking to compensate for any numerical disadvantage. They established kill zones, created crossfire patterns, used grenades and explosives to neutralize groups of machines at once. How much longer? Patricia shouted into her communication device. 20 minutes minimum, Linda responded. Her voice focused and calm despite the chaos surrounding her. I'm almost through the primary encryption layer. Just need a little more time. We can hold for 20 minutes, Patricia said, and she meant it. Her soldiers would stand their ground against an army if necessary. They would not retreat while Linda was still working on saving thousands of lives. The battle raged on. More machines emerged from hidden locations. The casualties mounted among the human soldiers, but none of them broke formation. None of them panicked. They simply continued fighting with the same disciplined efficiency that had characterized their entire military training. Marcus monitored the situation from the command center, ready to send reinforcements if the situation became untenable. But he trusted Patricia's judgment and her soldiers' capability. He knew they would hold the line. Barrier generator security is compromised, Linda announced. Initiating shutdown sequence now. This will take approximately 60 seconds. Everyone should prepare for the barrier collapse. The automated machines seemed to sense that something was wrong. They intensified their attacks, their weapons firing faster and with greater intensity. But it was too late. The barrier field collapsed suddenly and completely. Throughout the colony, thousands of frozen colonists began to wake up slowly. Consciousness returned gradually to their minds as the stasis effect released its grip on them. They gasped and cried out in confusion and fear as they regained awareness and surrounding them. Standing guard in the darkness and the confusion were 2,000 human soldiers. Warriors who had come from across the galaxy to save people they had never met. Patricia and her team withdrew from the underground vault as the automated defense system shut down. They emerged into sunlight, wounded but alive. Victorious but marked by the cost of their victory, Marcus personally led the medical teams through the colony, coordinating care for the disoriented survivors. He moved from person to person, his voice calm and reassuring, explaining what had happened, where they were now, why they were safe. He spoke to frightened children. He helped confused elderly colonists to their feet. He coordinated his soldiers to establish medical triage centers and distribute water and food to the survivors. Vasek observed him from a distance for a long moment, watching as the human lieutenant moved through the chaos with purpose and compassion. The commander then approached Marcus directly. You took command of this operation without consulting me, Vasek said, his voice neutral and measured. That was outside protocol. That was outside the established chain of command. Marcus looked up from a child he was helping to sit up. Yes, sir. That was an overstepping of my authority. I apologize if I acted inappropriately. You did not overstep, Vasek said slowly, his three eyes reflecting new understanding. You prevented disaster. My forces were not equipped for this kind of situation. You assessed the threat. You adapted to the circumstances, and you executed a solution. It was efficient and effective, and it saved thousands of lives. Marcus stood, offering his hand in the human gesture of respect and equality. We are here to assist the Alliance, Commander. This is what we do. This is who we are as a species." Vasek gripped the human's hand firmly, and in that moment, he truly understood why Earth's entry into the galactic community had already begun changing everything about how the galaxy functioned. Humans did not just defend themselves and their own interests. They defended everyone who called for help. The journey back to the main fleet was quiet and contemplative. The colony survivors were safely evacuated aboard the human transport ships. The automated defense systems were carefully dismantled and studied. The threat to the Helios 7 colony had been completely neutralized and resolved. Marcus Cross sat in the command center of the Liberator, the flagship of the human Eastern Battalion, and reviewed the casualty reports with careful attention. His soldiers had lost 3 people during the operation, and another 19 had been wounded in combat. Some wounds were serious and would require extensive medical treatment. It was a small number overall, but it represented a tremendous cost nonetheless. Each one on that list was a person, a life with meaning and value, a loss that would ripple outward to loved ones on Earth who would grieve and mourn. 3 soldiers would not be coming home. 3 families would receive notifications that changed everything about their lives. 3 empty chairs would exist at family dinners and gatherings. Marcus had known going into this mission that death was a possibility. His soldiers had known it as well. And somehow, despite that knowledge, they had volunteered anyway. They had stepped onto the transport ships and journeyed into the unknown because people needed help. That was what humanity meant in the context of the galactic community. Marcus realized with sudden clarity. It was not about having superior weapons or faster ships or more advanced technology. Those things were nice to have, but they were not what defined humanity. What defined humanity was showing up when called. It was sacrifice for strangers. It was looking at impossible odds and finding a way through them anyway. It was caring about people you had never met and risking your life to save them. Sergeant Patricia. Alan approached him an hour later with a datapad containing the finalized casualty report and other administrative details. Her uniform was torn in places and she had bandages on her left arm where shrapnel from machine fire had caught her. Casualty report is compiled and ready, sir, she said. We have also received an official message from Commander Vasek requesting a formal meeting with you before our battalion departs for home. Marcus accepted the datapad and reviewed it carefully. The names on the casualty list represented people he had trained with, soldiers he had led into combat, individuals whose absence would be felt deeply by their squads and units. He met with Vasek later in the commander's office aboard the orbital station. The Corthian was dressed in formal military attire, and his 3 eyes seemed thoughtful and contemplative. The High Council of the Galactic Alliance has been informed in detail about your actions and the actions of your battalion here at Helios 7, Vasek said. They are already conducting discussions about the potential for greater human military integration into our defensive framework. Your species may be asked to expand its military presence across multiple galactic territories. Marcus listened carefully without interrupting the commander. You understand what that means, Vasek continued. You will be called upon to fight in wars that are not your own, to defend species that your people have never met in person, to sacrifice your soldiers in conflicts across the galaxy, to risk lives for strangers in distant places. Yes, sir, Marcus said simply. That is what allies do. That is what allies must do if the Alliance is to survive and succeed. Vasek's 3 eyes studied the human for a long moment. When your species joined the Galactic Alliance 3 years ago, we feared that you would be weak. We thought you would be a burden. You were isolated from most of your history. You lacked experience in large-scale galactic conflicts. We doubted your capabilities. And now, Marcus asked, Now I understand that we were measuring strength using the wrong standards, Vasek said. You did not bring the most advanced weapons or the most sophisticated technology. You brought determination and courage. You brought discipline and focus. You brought compassion for strangers. A colony of people you had never met and would likely never meet meant nothing to your people before this day. And yet you risked your soldiers' lives without hesitation to save them. Marcus felt the weight of those words settle on his shoulders like a heavy cloak. We will be back, Commander. Whenever you call for help, we will answer. You have my word on that. I believe you will, Vasek said. And the galaxy will be better for your presence here. The galaxy will be better for what humanity brings to this community. As Marcus walked back to the transport ship that would carry him and his battalion home to Earth, he looked up at the stars surrounding the station. He could see Helia 7 in the distance. The colony that had been on the brink of complete destruction, somewhere out there among those distant stars. Other alien commanders were receiving reports of what had happened here at Helia 7. They would be re-evaluating their assumptions about humans. They would be realizing that Earth had sent not just a military battalion, but a message to the entire galaxy humanity had truly arrived on the galactic stage. Humans had demonstrated that they were not merely traders or explorers or isolated colonists. They were warriors and protectors who would stand with their allies against any darkness. The battalion boarded their ships in formation and prepared for the long journey through space that would carry them back home to Earth. They carried with them the knowledge that everything had changed. They were no longer newcomers to the galactic community, trying to prove their worth. They were protectors and guardians. They were the species that showed up when others called for help. They were humans, and the galaxy would never be the same.